Sorry, there's a guy that's maybe been here 10 years. They may have a certain way they've done things, and so you're new. We're all new, and so that's been fun. Going back and looking at the film of stuff, all three of those guys have done at previous stops, stuff I've done at different stops with different quarterbacks. So to answer your question, short answer, yes, it's a little bit easier when everybody's new.
Arthur, you do mention that you got a lot of people, but there are some familiar faces to you that have come in, guys like Van and Michael. I mean, what's it like to have guys who've been with you at other stops come here? Does that kind of help maybe some of the guys that are new to you learn maybe things that you like to do?
Yeah, there's some things that they've been with me, they know, the coaching style. There's a lot of things that we put in new that are new to those guys too. You don't want to be rigid or get stale. But a little personality, fill in the blanks, that really helps. And then the other exciting part, we got a lot of young offensive guys that were drafted here. And in a previous stop, I was heavily involved in the roster acquisition. So there's a lot of work that was done. So you're pretty familiar with guys that were coming out in the draft, from 21 to 23 as well.
Justin Fields fundamentals. Are you working hard on those?
Well, all those guys, we're working, whether it's Dan Moore or Isaac, there's always little things you're working on. And that's what it is, constantly improving. So with all the quarterbacks, we're working on everything we can.
It seems like a reconstruction project.
I don't know if they call it reconstruction. I mean, that's just, different opinions. But certainly, we're excited to have the opportunity to work with him. And Justin's, he got a great mindset for a guy that's, had a lot of individual success. He certainly had some flash plays that we've all seen, had some dynamic playmaking. But whether it's Russ, him, Kyle, John Rice, all these guys, we're constantly working to enhance the fundamentals.
There's so much talk about this opportunity stood out to you.
A lot of things. And, obviously when things don't go the way you want, and, thankful, I had people call right away and had interest. I got far away. I promised my wife we got out of the country. And, so I knew I wanted to work. I wasn't going to stay out. And then when Mike called me, I was literally halfway around the world, and I said, hell yeah, I'm interested. One is I have such an appreciation of the history of this game, and guys that have been big mentors to me have either coached here or played here, and I could go on and on. And Mike Vrabel was a player here, worked for Braves, and he had a big influence. Mike Malarkey, Ken Wisenhunt, Russ Grimm, Dick LeBeau. I got guys that I coached with in Tennessee, from Deshae Townsend to Nick Eason, Lou Spanos. I worked with in Tennessee, and there's so many guys, players or coaches, and swear by this place. And so when Mike called me, he talked about just funny how timing in life works. I wanted him to know, hell yeah, well, I was interested and wanted this job. And so, and to work for Mike and what this place means, and if you, like I said, you like the history of this game and the ways that the Rooneys have done business here. I got to know Omar a little bit over the years through the league meetings and whatnot, and certainly Mike. And that was very appealing. It's rare when you have a guy that's been in one spot, had the success he's had, that's older, has done it for a longer time, somebody you can learn from and has really a shared belief. So really it was a home run for me. It's funny how life works that way, things don't go your way and then door opens, and I couldn't have asked for a better situation.
Where were you? Where you were?
Yeah, I was in Dubai. Literally, I was going from Dubai to the Maldives, and I was sitting in a hotel room, and so it was, how many hours later? It was dinner time. I guess it was morning here. And then as soon as I landed at JFK, he told me, let me know when you're stateside. I called him. I said, I'll get on a plane to Pittsburgh right now and come interview. I flew here the next day.
So you cut your vacation short?
No, I did not. My wife would have. You kind of go in a submarine. You're working at such a pace, whether it's coordinator, and certainly those years in Atlanta, before we made another big life decision. And again, I was fortunate, lucky to have options and interest. I did not, so I didn't want to get divorced.
How do you feel like you and Mike kind of complement each other's coaching styles? And you said you wanted to stay in it, but how tough is it to go from being the head guy in charge to now being a coordinator again?
It's not. If you don't have an ego or you're insecure, you need to take recalibrate and look at things you can learn. And you get a coach like Mike to learn from, and certainly in this place and the way they've done it. Obviously, we've gone against them with our different spots, and like I said, there's just so much shared history and appreciation I have. Even going back, I got to work 5 weeks with Tom Moore. He was always in my ear when I saw him in Tampa, and it's the only time I've seen Tom not look old was to go back to those pictures on the wall And Tom talking about studying Chuck Knoll. I mean, people swear by this place. Mike Malarkey played for Chuck, worked here for Bill Cowher. So, I mean, it was, like I said, I couldn't have asked for a better situation. And just studying Mike and the Steelers and what they're about. And I feel like it's a good, perfect fit.
Tom looked old in the 80s.
What's that?
Tom looked old in the 80s.
He looks young, and I'll tell Tom that. I guess we don't see him. I saw him twice a year when we played Tampa. But, God, over the years, he's been great. Just a little wisdom. Like I said, it's the only time he's looked the same since he was calling plays for Peyton. But he's been awesome behind the scenes, been a good mentor to him as well.
Speaking with your offensive lineman, it's clear that physicality is a point of emphasis for you. Why is that such a point of emphasis, and what does that look like here early on for you?
Well, the game doesn't change. I mean, you look at both sides and the lines of scrimmage. I mean, you may have the greatest designer play against this coverage and schemed up perfectly, and if you can't block the guys up front, it's going to be hard living. And you look at the history they've had here. I mean, there's a great history on both sides of the line of scrimmage, especially when they've won Super Bowls, both sides. It's just something I believed in, I was raised in. And, you know, I was an offensive lineman myself. So, and going back to your question about fit, maybe that helps too when being an lineman. You know, you do any job. If you're asked to lead. If you're asked to be a lieutenant, be a lieutenant, you know. So it's all part of the learning process.
So there's a young offensive lineman who, like in Troy, Broderick, and Zach. How have you seen them embrace what you've been trying to coach them to do?
Well, it certainly helps. You know, you want to be a tough physical team, and you know, thankfully, we drafted some tough physical guys who had a lot of meaningful snaps in college at a high level. So we kind of knew what they were about. And again, sometimes you get lucky in the draft. You don't always get everybody you want. But it was cool the way it felt to us, and to be able to add all three of those guys.
This is your most talented roster?
What's that?
This is your most talented roster in terms of the type?
It's like picking like your favorite child. I've got 3 kids. You know, I've been really fortunate. I've gotten to coach a lot of great players, and I have such a great appreciation for those guys. You know, the whole league's talented, but we're certainly excited about the personnel we got.
There's so much talk, Arthur, about needing a second receiver, number 2 receiver beside George. What do you like about the options on this roster, and do you have a legitimate number 2 on this roster?
Again, it's all subjective, and you know, things happen coming during the season. Again, I'm thankful right now. I get to go back and just coach the players. You know, thankful, grateful for my previous stop, but now I just dive in and, you know, and you may have conversations, but that ultimately not my responsibility. And things happen. Guys get injured first play of the game, and you have to have contingency plans, and that's our job. I mean, the ball's going to kick off every Sunday or now Wednesday at 1 o'clock on Christmas or whenever they tell us to play. But you better have depth, and you're always working contingency and looking for improvement. And so you deal with whatever circumstances thrown your way. I don't get too caught up in labeling guys, especially this time of the year. When the guys are all, you know, we're at football in shorts trying to compete for a job. A lot of things will be worked out in Latrobe, and things can always change too.
Can you get creative with 2 athletic offensive tackles like you have? Is there anything?
Sure. There's certain
Harbaugh was
schematically.
raving about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain schemes you may want to run. I mean, that when you have more athletic tackles, and you know, that can certainly be in certain run schemes, getting them out of space. It could be in the screen game. Whether you want to get in the pulling them or whatever you're trying to do, it certainly gives you a lot of flexibility when you have athletic tackles, or really athletic linemen.
Arthur, as you started to learn about your roster, the running back position, what stands out to you about just the top 2 backs, what they might do differently, similarly, and
Yeah.
how do they fit into what you want to do?
Well, ultimately, it's a fine line. I mean, you have your beliefs, but you're not so rigid. You're trying to play to their strengths and you know, enhance things year after year to try to get them to improve on. But you know, both Najee and Jalen have had a lot of success in this league, and so you know, as they fit in there, I mean, you break it down, give or take, 17-game season. You know, you hope to have 1,100 plus plays, and if you're a balanced offense, give or take where your carries are out. You know, nobody, even Derrick Henry, we didn't ask him to carry the ball 550 times. So there's plenty of carries to go around, whether that's traditionally or non-traditionally. But been really excited to get to work with both those guys. It's been fun this spring, getting to know both of them well off the field. And we have depth. I mean, talk about the receivers. I mean, you never know what happens. And we've got good competition with some vets. Certainly, Cordell Patterson being here, he's played in multiple spots in previous stops where I've been at. We'll see how it all shakes out, but we've got good depth in that room.
Arthur, why was it important for you to come right back into coaching and not take some time?
I don't know. Probably, I don't think anybody you're well adjusted to do this job. So maybe you'd have to ask my wife. I don't know. not old enough to want to sit out. I want to compete, and like I said, just thankful opportunities here. Sorry.
Arthur,
Two
do you,
more?
do you view this as a quarterback competition, or are you kind of ramping Russ up? at this
No, again, like I said, Mike's stated on the record. You know, Russ is in the pole position. It's a competition. Obviously, we get to Latrobe. I mean, certainly, I'm sure things will heat up. But both those guys knew that however they were acquired, and they got here. And I think it's been pretty transparent. I know Mike said that on the record as well.
What is it about Tom Arth that makes him a good quarterback coach to work with both of those guys? And I know he's been, kind of working with Justin's footwork, things like that. Just why is he good at what he does?
Well, again, when I got here, some of the staff was shuffled around, and guys, it's been great to get to know the guys that were here. Some of them are in different roles. But Tom's a guy I've gotten to know from afar. Cleveland being down the road, I've worked with two St. Ignatius guys. Tom's, I guess, the third, and Dave Ragone, who I was with in Tennessee and Atlanta. John Gannon and I shared an office in Tennessee. So I got to know them over the years. And then his body of work. Tom's another guy. He's been a head coach, been in different roles. He's been in kind of a senior assistant out in the Chargers. Guy that played quarterback in this league, was a backup to Peyton Manning, spent some time with Mike McCarthy, and that thing got going early on. And when he interviewed,